as usual. Do you want to introduce yourself to begin with, in case there's anyone watching?
Sure. I'm Leah from Tea with Leah, obviously, and in my channel I talk about books, sometimes movies and shows. And my main genre that I read is fantasy, and I don't know what to say else.
I always feel like whenever I get like, I think it's a hangover from like school when they used to be like, oh, now you have to introduce yourself and stuff. If I'm just introducing myself in any situation, I get nervous. Or like any time where I'm waiting to speak about something, I get like all like, what do I say? I don't know what.
Yeah.
There's nothing interesting. There's my name and that's it.
Yeah, I feel like I know like 5 words whenever I have to introduce myself.
Yeah. But I think I don't know. I kind of like tabbed a little bit. You can't even see it. I tabbed a couple of things in the book, more so things that I remembered were different from the film, and then also things that I found interesting from, I guess, from a more like adult standpoint. I think that there's a lot of, it's really interesting reading it because I never read it as a kid, but like reading it at the age I am now, there's a lot of things that I pick up on that a kid probably wouldn't, which I think is always really interesting when you read like a children's book, that especially because it's written by an adult, he must have like, whether he had the intention behind it or not, I think an adult will always add things in that kids won't pick up on. But I don't know, was there anything that like, actually, first of all, what did you give it in like as a rating?
I gave it 3 stars, and well, it's always a bit a difficult rating a book for children because it's just written so differently, because like everything just happens so fast, and I feel like there's almost no build up, especially in Coraline, since it's like only 200 pages long or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really hard to write, especially since I saw the movie before. Like I watched it a few times a few years ago, and the movie is just stunning because it's also stop motion and it just looks so good. And I think this is definitely a case where the movie is better than the book.
Yeah.
And what's your rating?
Yeah. So I've read it a couple of times before, and I always tend to give it around a 4. And that's because I take into consideration the fact that there's things that the movie has to its advantage. Like, I think when you're making a film, especially when it's got the visuals that it does, it was always going to be better than the book.
Yeah.
Especially because it is a children's book. I think unless he'd written like a 500-page book, he wouldn't have been able to do it better than the film anyway. And I think also because the film is so similar, like it is literally the skeleton and then you've added on like the flesh to it. So that's why I always I went a little bit up, just taking that into consideration. But like I agree with what you say, that like if it was any other book, it'd probably be 3 stars. But I think because I can see how similar the book and the movie are, that it's like it's kind of like if someone writes something, like if someone does like an assignment for class and then gives it to someone else a year later and then they add a little bit extra, and then the teacher gives them more for that just because like they've taken someone else. But yeah. There's one thing that I was thinking about. So when I watched, and I knew it, like I always forget because I remember the film instead of the book. So you didn't read the book before, had you?
No, it's the first time I read this book.
So whenever I'm thinking about like what happens in Coraline, I always think about the movie instead of the book. And the thing that I realized when I started reading the book this time around was that what's his name? Is it YB? The guy with the boy who gets his mouth stitched up, that he's not in the book.
Yeah,
and
I think he was also really missing in the book because I don't know, his character I think brings a bit more life into the story, because especially since he's another child in Coraline's age, and all of the rest of the characters that we meet are the cat or adults.
I thought it was really interesting. I think that there's, I don't know, from like I could be really picky with it and be like, oh, they're adding a boy, and then it kind of takes away from the fact that like in the book she is so independent and she does it all herself. Like she's so smart and figures it all out herself. And then like in the film she's just got a little bit of help from someone else. So like if I'm being nitpicky, I'm kind of like, I like the fact that in the book that she is so independent and like does it all by herself. But then it's also, yeah, I guess nice for her to have someone else.
I think that's why I also prefer the movie a bit more, because we have Ivy there and she relies more on other people. And I think even in the movies, she's very still her own character and very strong still.
Yeah.
And in the book, she just does not have another person, and that's why it felt very like a book for young children, while in the movie she feels a bit older. You know what I mean? I don't know how
Yeah.
to say it probably, but it felt more real in the movie in a way because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I actually, what I noticed is at the bit of like the end in the book where I mean, in the movie as well, but like when she goes from like defeating the other mother or not defeating her, but like winning this game and stuff like that, and then coming back, and then all of a sudden she feels really, really childish, like at the very end. And I think she's playing it up because she knows that there's the hand that's going to come and try and take the key, but she really plays it up. It was really jarring, that kind of like she goes from being really strong and like figuring all this stuff out, like being really clever with the like knowing where her parents are but not telling her, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna play with dolls and we're gonna have a tea party, would you like a slice of cake? And it was just really, really funny that it was, because it doesn't feel like that in the book, and no, in the movie. In the movie it feels like she's just the same person throughout the whole thing, because even when she gets back, she kind of has this moment, like there's this dream thing that she has where they're like, you have to be careful, and she figures out that she has to hide the key, and she goes and does it in a completely different way to the way that it is in the book. So like I can see that she seems older. I think when you take something that's as creepy as it is and sort of visualize it, that it can't be made for the same age group as the book was made for, because seeing things is so much more effective than reading them, I think.
Yeah, I think also in the movie with the picnic, when she made a picnic, I don't remember it clearly how it was in the movie, but I think in the movie it felt more like she was more suspicious of her surroundings, while in the book it felt very silly, but that's probably just because we were in her head.
Yeah. Maybe I literally watched the movie yesterday, and I swear I just remember it was like, it felt like she in the book it's during the day or something like that, and in the movie it looks like she wakes up and it's night and she goes straight down there as well, but that might just be me that's watched it wrong. I wasn't really paying attention, to be honest. But it's actually kind of crazy. I think it's one of the only films that I've seen where they actually really, really took it seriously. Like, you can even if you read the book and watch the movie back to back, there are lines that you can pick out that are like exactly the same, like verbatim, word for word, that they used.
Really?
Like the cat, when the cat grabs the rat, like bites the rat, and then he's like, I think you remember that I said that I don't like rats at the best of times. It's like word for word, he says exactly the same thing. And I think I would like to think that's the creator and like the writers and the directors basically just really liking the book and wanting to do that, because there's so many cases where there's like really good books that have been written really well and then people have just kind of changed it, and not always for the better. I think everyone agrees most of the time movies are worse than the books.
But I think that's pretty cool that they picked that up and put it in the movie. And actually, I can hear myself in the beginning when I talk. Do you also hear me like double? Because I think it's because you don't have headphones.
Then that's me, isn't it? I don't know if it's no, because I can't hear. I'll put my headphones in and then it will sort itself out, I think. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah. And now I can't hear me anymore. That's great.
You can't hear yourself? Oh, no, yeah.
No, I can't hear the echo anymore.
Yeah, no, that's good.
And what I also wanted to say, because I think we both have the same edition, right? The illustrated one.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, and I really liked the illustrations, but what I did not like was that the illustrations for the next chapter just came before the chapter happened.
Yeah.
Because that just always spoiled stuff for me, because I've forgotten a lot about the movie because I've seen it, I don't know, 5 years ago or something like that. And then when I was finished with the chapter, there was the new illustration, and then it basically already showed us what was happening. And I was like, why is it like this? I think that was a bit weird.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, I want to say that's a common thing for like certain types of books. I couldn't give you an example, but I swear I've seen it before where it's like, or maybe like, I think I've got because I've got an illustrated edition of Alice in Wonderland and Little Women that's like the same kind of copy. And I think it's the same there, where the illustrations come before the chapter.
Okay.
And I don't know why they do it, because it makes more sense just to have it kind of next to the thing, like after what it said or something like that.
Yeah, definitely not before.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Right, let me see if I've got anything.
And what I thought was also very interesting was when the two older women who live in the same house as Coraline, one of them gives her this stone thing where she can look through, and then she feels a bit more safe when she has that. I think it was interesting that it's of course a book for children, and that's why it's a bit convenient. But I just wondered for myself, what if there's like a backstory to that? That would be, I think, really interesting if you could see maybe, I don't know, the backstory of the two old ladies upstairs where they use this stone thing. But I don't think that there's like an extra story, is there?
No, well, I was thinking just in general, like a whole backstory. There's so much. There's like a mythology to it. It feels like there's something that's happened, and even with like Beldam and everything like that. Like, why is it this other mother exists and stuff like that? And I'm so shocked that they haven't done like something. Like, there hasn't been someone has written something, or like made a movie or something like that. That was like the what happened before that, because it's in the movie. Another thing that's really convenient with the character of Wybie, he says about his grandma having, like, she had a twin sister or something like that who went missing, and then Coraline kind of works out that it must be one of those ghost children that she met, and that's a really interesting thing as well, because you could do something with that, and I think that the old women with the stone would have tied in really well to that. So I think that it tends to be the case with a lot of like children's books, is they don't, because like, you know, children, you're not writing to make money off of them. You just kind of, you know, you write a story and then they probably don't think too much about it, or they imagine in their head what's happened afterwards. Whereas with adults, there's so many times when people just keep on making like movie after movie or like book after book just because they know they can make money off of people like that. So I think that's probably why they haven't done it. But I think that you're so right. Like, I hadn't thought about the old women, but there should be something. There's no reason for them, because they knew, like, they knew that it was going to be useful. Yeah.
And did you watch Only Murders in the Building? It's like a
No,
show on Disney+.
I haven't watched it yet. I should.
Yeah, it's really good. You should watch it. But if anyone's watching this and if you don't know what it is, it's just a show with like these people who are really into pod crimes. Is that how you call it? Crime podcasts.
Oh yeah, I don't know what the podcast with true crime.
Yeah, and there's like how the title already suggests, murder in the building, and they kind of try to figure out what happened. And I think it would be super cool if we could get like the same concept just with Coraline and how she tries to figure out what's up with this weird house. Like, if she would be like 10 years older and she goes back to that house and to figure out what happened back there. Yeah. I don't think that will happen, but I think that would be really cool.
I was thinking there's so much you could do with it.
Yeah.
Like, so much, especially you could really make it into a like something for adults as well. Like, you could make it so much creepier while still kind of keeping, because the movie has this sort of whimsy, like it feels really whimsical in comparison to the book. The book kind of feels a bit darker, whereas the movie is just so like bright colors and everything like that. I feel like you could keep that, make it into something where it's like not, I mean, I could see it as like a TV show with themes similar to American Horror Story. Like, I could see there's some seasons where they play on like mythology and stuff like that. That you could do that kind of thing, like a similar thing with Coraline.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah, and like not necessarily. Yeah, exactly. I've gotten to the wrong thing. I was like, I'm never going to be able to do anything creative because I'm the worst at coming up with concepts, and then 5 years too late. No, I think that there's so much that people could do with it, and I don't know why they haven't, because there's so many times where it's like they're recreating something or other. Like, if you see with horror movies, the amount of times they revive things, The fact that they haven't done it with Coraline, surely Coraline did really well in the blockbuster, but I don't know.
Yeah, but that's really true. Like, we have, I don't know, how many Scream movies are there, or
But
Saw
there's a fifth
movies?
one coming out, and I was like, it's my favorite franchise, and the first one is like I've confirmed because I watched it twice within the space of like a week or something like that this month, and just realized how much I love it. You know, when there's a film and you watch it and you're like, oh, I really like it, and then you forget about it, or you don't forget about it, you know that you like it, you know it's probably one of your favorites, and then you watch it again and you're like, this is definitely my favorite. So the first one is my favorite, and then like as time goes on, like the second and the third ones, yeah, they're all right, like they're good, not as good as the first one obviously, and then the fourth one I still need to rewatch it, but like it's as time goes on, because it loses kind of that like the time period of it. It should be the 90s and the early 2000s. That's when the Scream movies should be set. So the fact that they're literally making one that's set nowadays, or whenever it's set, like 2010, 2020 or something.
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's not the same.
Yeah, I think a lot of horror movies or thriller movies just wouldn't work nowadays anymore because of smartphones and the internet and everything that we have.
Exactly. And they actually, because I watched, there's a trailer that just came out for it, the Scream 5, and they play on like on technology and stuff like that. Like on the girl's phone, she has like she can lock her doors and stuff like that. So it's like they can hack into that and they can unlock her door and then get in through that and stuff like that. But it's just there's so many things where if you watch a horror movie from the 90s when they make really stupid mistakes. Or like I was thinking, it was such a shame that I didn't get to talk about Survive the Night, because I was thinking the whole plot of that book, if it hadn't have been set when it had been set, like if it had been set later than that, then everything that happened wouldn't have happened because she would have had a mobile. It should have been like message. Excuse me, there's something going on. So, but yeah, anyway, back to Coraline. That was absolutely nothing to do with it. Although I have a feeling we're just going to be talking about other stuff. Oh yeah, one thing I noticed is that if I've read it right, basically in the book it seems like the door is like a massive one. It's like a massive door. I think, unless I'm reading it wrong. Yeah, because it says it's a big carved brown wooden door. Yeah. Whereas in the movie
it's very tiny.
A little tiny one.
Yeah.
Which is that must have been, I think it must have been a conscious decision to do that, surely, like.
Yeah.
Because it's a big difference.
Oh, and also in the beginning, when Coraline was in the house and her parents went out for grocery shopping, I actually forgot that the other mother trapped them. And the whole time I was reading that book and the parents of Coraline weren't home, I just thought, oh my god, what horrible parents she has. I thought they were the worst until we get to the point where she sees them in the other world, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, do you know what? It happened so quickly as well. The first part of the story that's one thing that they've changed, is that it gets muddled up, because in the movie she manages to go and meet the other parents, go to sleep, wake up in her normal room, and then she goes back to them and then escapes after she kind of has a bit of an altercation with the other mother. She then comes back and then realizes her parents are gone, whereas in the book it's so quick. It's like she goes there once, realizes something is up, and then goes back, and then her parents aren't there and stuff like that. So that's another thing. So I feel like that's kind of, I was expecting it to take longer, so I got confused when it was like all of a sudden she was just back and they were gone, and it was like that was quick.
Yeah, like I was glad that the book wasn't too thick, because I'm not reading that much at the moment.
Me neither.
I have to work a lot, but I thought just the things that happened here just felt very quick, because everything just happened in the span of a second, I felt like.
Yeah. But I think it is that, like, if you read a children's story, it is crazy how quick things go, because it's not even just about the amount of pages. It's literally just the pacing of the book is so different. Yeah. But no, about the door, I I don't know. I feel like I haven't thought too much about it, but do you not think that having like a tiny little door like that where you get through and you can just crawl through as a kid, like an adult probably couldn't get through that door, right? In the film, it makes it more. It adds to that sort of whimsy. Like it makes
Yeah,
it more
definitely.
fun and like secretive, and I guess makes it more attractive for her to want to go through the door.
Yeah,
Because I get that, like as a kid, if there's a locked door, you want to go through it anyway. But in the book, because it's such a big door, it's like, is it really that interesting? It's just a big door. Like, why do you want to go through it? Whereas the little tiny one, it's actually like, oh, there could be something in there.
Yeah, and I think just for a kid's imagination, also when there's like a tiny door, you can just imagine so much more stuff, because you would probably think like, who fits through that door? Like, I don't know, elves and gnomes or something. While the
Yeah.
big door just felt like how you said, just like a normal door that is closed up with bricks.
Yeah.
And I also I don't think we have this one scene in the movie where in the book, Coraline tells the story to the cat, where her father, like they were outside somewhere and they stepped into a nest of wasps or bees.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very cute moment and made me really emotional.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's in the movie.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
it?
it's kind of a shame, but I think it's the book has, because it's written from her perspective, like shows you a lot of how she's feeling and like her sentiments behind things, why she does stuff, which you don't see in the book because you can't, like, unless she was narrating it herself. And I think that that little like anecdote brings forward the meaning of the whole story. And I can imagine as a kid, like if I was a kid and someone was reading that to me, I'd be like, oh, so this is a story about how being brave isn't about not being scared, it's about being scared but still doing something despite the fact that you're scared, and it ties the whole thing together. Otherwise it's like, it's a great story, but like what's really the point? And then that like little, I don't know if they cut it out just because, I mean, obviously it's harder to do like that. It would seem a bit malplaced, I think, to have a flashback like that. But I think in the movie, because it does feel a bit aged up, it doesn't need to have like a moral. I don't think that adults and teenagers and like people that are a bit older really care about morals anymore. It's more just like kids like it because it's like it kind of makes things make sense for them. But it's a really sweet moment.
And I really like how Neil Gaiman wrote that, because he told, like you said, he told us to be brave. We are scared, but we are still brave because we need to do something for like other people. And I think that's just a very cute message.
Yeah. And especially because he says, did you read like the little introduction at the beginning of the book?
Yeah.
Where he says that he started writing it when he had his first daughter and then kind of finished it with his, I'm guessing his second daughter. Yeah. Which is very sweet.
Yeah.
It gives a book, another, like a children's book, a completely different meaning when you know that the person that's writing it has children and is thinking about writing it for their children. And it makes it, I don't want to say more believable, because I don't think stories are ever believable or need to be believable, but it makes it seem like the intention is behind it.
Yeah. It's more wholesome in a way.
Yeah. Right, let me see if I've...
Also, this illustration was like so creepy. I read the book at night and then I turned the page and then there was like this illustration.
Oh my god, yes. So the difference between like the illustration of the ghost children there and the way they are in the movie is like so crazy, because in the film they're just like, I mean, kind of creepy, because like ghosts are creepy in general, and little kid ghosts and like Victorian kid ghosts are creepy.
Yeah, they're
but
creepy.
They just, with like the sort of colors and stuff like that, and I don't know, they have more of a shape, whereas here they kind of just look like a bunch of squiggles and then a face in the book, and that was like, that's really, and their eyes as well.
Yeah, they're
like
missing.
Completely gouged out. I think it's sometimes the way that the illustrations are really throw you off, because the story in itself, the way it's written in the book, feels a lot more kid friendly, and then you just get those illustrations and it's I don't think I'd want to show it to my sister.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a horror fan because I just get scared super easily, and when I was reading this book at night and when I was home alone, I definitely felt a bit spooked.
Yeah, I didn't even. I don't think I really read this too much in the night. I don't get too spooked by books. I think
Really?
that no, I think that the illustrations, if anything, they're the things that like see, because visual things do give me the creeps, but like
Mm-hmm.
not too badly. I never get scared. I don't like when I read horror books. I don't get scared by them. But like when I watch horror movies, if I was going to watch a horror film just by myself, and like it was dark and stuff like that, that's why I tend to stick to like funnier things like slashers, where it's just like, yeah, it's scary, someone's going to kill you, whatever, but it's also kind of funny.
Yeah,
Like I don't like paranormal too much because that's like really,
that's really creepy.
yeah, it is. And it's funny because you just like there's more of a chance that someone's going to try and murder me than that a ghost is going to appear, but for some reason I'm just more scared of ghosts.
Yeah, I'm the same. I watched like this movie, I don't know, it's like from the 2000s or something, which is called like The Ghost Ship. And there are obviously ghosts on that ship. And I watched it when I was like very young, like 6 years old or something. I don't know. It was on in the TV, and I was like, okay, let me just watch that. And since then, I have always been afraid of paranormal things that are scary, like scary ghosts, especially girls in like old dresses and who are
Yeah,
ghosts. That just
yeah.
scares me very much, even though it's not realistic at all.
Yeah, but you know what? If I saw a ghost that was like dressed in modern clothes walking around, I'd probably be like, oh, that's all right. It's when they're old fashioned. It's when you know
Yeah,
that they've been around for a long time, like they're 100, 200 years old.
yeah.
That's the scary ones. Um, what was I going to say? I was thinking of something in conjunction with that, but I can't remember what it was. It was something to do with ghosts. Oh yeah, it was the thing with like ghosts and anything that is not human is it just has no for the most part. I mean, there's cases where like the Halloween movies have been around for so long, right? There's so many,
Hmm.
and Michael Myers in Halloween, he just keeps coming back. So like he doesn't even count as a human anymore. But for the most part, when you like have human people that are killers, they have like um a limit, like you can kill them off and then they can't
Yeah,
hurt you. If you can hurt them and kill them, then it's fine. Whereas with ghosts and stuff like that, you don't know what they're
yeah. You can't
or
do
anything
anything.
mythical. Exactly, which is um why it's like interesting with something like Coraline when it's a children's book that they choose something so scary. I mean, saying that, I've never read a children's book where it's about a man trying to kill people.
No, that would be so
But
dark.
it's just funny that you wouldn't do that, but you would choose something that, like, ultimately, I think maybe more for adults is scarier than um like things that are more realistic. But I don't know. Maybe I've completely lost my train of thought. But and then I kept on like in my head comparing it to something like It. Like if you see the way that because they've got similar origins in the fact or like stories in the fact that it's like this thing that you don't know what it is trying
Hmm.
to kill children
Yeah.
with different methods, but ultimately very similar because I mean you wouldn't be able to tell it. You've probably never watched it, have you?
I watched like from the old It movie. There are
Okay,
like
yeah.
two parts. I watched like the first part.
I haven't seen the original one, so I don't know how it was done. But like in the newer ones, there's supposed to be this element of like Pennywise enticing the children, which is what the other like the Beldam does in Coraline, right? She kind of entices them, and she's like, "Oh, look, I can make your life so much better. Like we make nice food, and you get what you want and stuff like that." Which there's supposed to be that element from It, but it doesn't. You can't really see it if you like watch the movies or anything like that. So
Mm.
it's interesting. But then the way that it's like in children's literature or children's films, when there's something like that, the children don't get hurt. Like you don't physically see anyone get hurt. And then
Mm.
in adult versions, it's always just like trying to hurt people as much as possible. But it's like I guess it's kind of equally scary in itself, but it's just so funny that like in kids' versions of things, they just never get hurt. But
Yeah,
you're
I
still
think.
like scared, even
Yeah.
though there's not like examples of something going bad, except from the fact that you see the ghost children. But even then, you don't actually know exactly what happened.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh my god, I just opened the book and saw this picture.
Yeah, I mean, she is just, in general, terrifying. Oh, there was also a scene in the book that wasn't in the film, which is, I think it's because in the film, they added the scene where, oh, no, that happens as well. So basically, in between the bit where Coraline goes to get the ghost eye from the old women and goes to get it from the old man living upstairs, in the book there's an extra scene which is like where her other mother gives her a key to go into the spare apartment, and then she goes in and she goes down into the basement and her other father's there, and he's all like maldeformed and stuff like that, and that was so like physically it makes you kind of like shiver because it's like described as him being all doughy and stuff like that, and I'm surprised they didn't include that in the movie because that
maybe they thought it's too scary.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it wasn't so scary as it was just like disgusting. Like the idea of a human body just kind of all like ugh. And also I think they described in the two women in the book when she goes to get the marble and they're all like melted together, and it's described as like taking plasticine people and like melting them. Like some of the descriptions. Yeah.
Wait, here.
Yeah, some of the descriptions are like really like more gross than the movie.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but also thought the scene with the father was very cool. That he was down, the other father, that he was in down kept in the cellar and was away because the other mother was mad at him, and because it almost added like a bit of connection between him and Coraline, and it, in a way, I don't know. He just felt like he was more of a real father than the other mother. I don't know where I'm going with this, but it just I also just had to think of the scene with the bee, because we get like little bits and memories pieces that just paint the father in a good light, and we don't really have that with the mother, is something that I thought about.
Oh yeah, like the actual, like her actual mum.
Yeah.
Both in the book and in the film, just seems like she really could not care less about. But do you know what? I think in the book that the dad is painted in a better light than the dad is in the film. Because in the film, he also is equally like, literally, Coraline walks in and she's like, I'm bored. And he's like, I really don't care. He's like, go and do something. And like, I'm busy. And the mum kind of has that like feeling about her as well. But in the book, it's like, with that, it's kind of like, the parents are still busy, so you understand why they don't have time. But I guess from a child's perspective, you think, oh, they hate me. Like they can't be bothered because you can't see that they have things that they need to do. But then having like those anecdotes show that like the parents really do care, but it's more so the dad. And it's like interesting because you could have chosen, like he could have chosen to have the dad be the kind of controlling one.
Yeah.
But it's the mum that's the other mother, and who is the one that like is the entity that's like controlling everything. Which I don't know if that was a conscious thing or if it was like, because I mean you could see it from the perspective of the mum's usually the most nurturing one, and like is supposed to be the one that kind of, you know, is more soft on the children, and she's not.
Yeah,
she's
I think it's also interesting that they also changed the father in the movie, how you said they did, that he's a bit colder than in the book, actually.
Yeah.
I definitely need to rewatch the movie.
I mean, I wasn't like, I was trying, because I've started trying to crochet, and also my brain at the moment doesn't focus on one thing. Like I'm constantly all over the place. Like I kind of had it on in the background. But what I picked up on was that he just, also the other father doesn't work against the other mother as much. He's just very, very, very in her grips. But it's also because it, like, when it takes out that scene of like him, the way that he was, and he's like, oh, I'm not supposed to be talking to you, I'm trying to fight against it and stuff like that. Whereas in the movie, you kind of lose that. There's also a scene where she's walking around in like the pump, you know, where they've got that like massive thing where it's all the plants that they've planted and stuff like that. She's walking in there, and then the dad springs up as like this weird monster and tries to attack her. And that's not in the book either. So.
Yeah. This book was so short, I really don't know what to say.
No, there's literally, I was thinking, like, on the one hand, I'm happy that we picked this book because it's so short, and if we had have picked any other book, I wouldn't have finished it. Like, I swear to God, I would not have finished it. I literally just about managed to do it because, I don't know. I've realised, so if I was thinking at the very beginning of starting this readathon, I was like, oh my God, it's going so well. I'm seeing loads of people posting stuff and everything, and I was posting things on my story and stuff, and then it's just got like further and further along because it's such a long amount, like period of time. But also, I've got an exam on Monday, so I just have not been able. I've not been able to allow myself to do other things. So it feels like I've dropped off the face of the earth and have just landed in this like whole just exam stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, at the beginning, I was like, oh, this is going so well. I'm probably I want to do it next year again. And now I'm like, I don't, maybe not for 30 days or 31 days. I'd like to do it again, but just for a shorter amount of time. Yeah.
Yeah, but I felt the same. Because I've been working a bit more since here in Germany things are going back to normal more and more.
Yeah.
And therefore, I'm working again more, and then I just don't have the same time anymore to read books at the moment. I think I only read like 2 or 3 books, which this one.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I managed to read, I can't remember how many, but I managed to read a decent amount, but then just the last week I haven't really read anything except from Coraline, which is like for most people that's good, but like in comparison to what I was reading before, have you ever had a time where you've just read a lot and then all of a sudden stopped reading, and then it feels like you've done absolutely nothing, and like my whole, like I've just been sitting staring at my computer trying to study and stuff like that. It's just my brain feels like it's constantly doing something, but it's also not accomplished anything at all.
Yeah, that's
Because
me at the moment too.
I know I'm really like, and especially because I have to, like, I don't have time to, every time I think, right, I'm going to sit and I'm going to post something on Instagram because I've got pictures ready for it. I just need to write the caption and everything. I'm going to sit and do it. And then I'm like, but actually I should be studying. And then I'm like, I need to tidy, but I should be studying. And then it's just like this cycle of everything blurring into one. And, I'm so confused.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot at the moment, especially with exams and everything coming up again.
Yeah. But
yeah.
And then you think, oh, it's fine. It's going to be over. Like, we're going to get into a period where you can calm down, and then it's Christmas.
Yeah,
and like
it's also full again.
I don't personally have to do a lot of stuff. My parents do the majority of Christmas. But there are also things that I have to think about, of like
presents,
money, stuff with presents. It's a whole other thing when all of a sudden you have to start paying for your own food and things like that. So it's like I can't, like, I've got money, I could technically go and buy people presents, but I'm also like, do I want to risk not having money to be able to eat afterwards?
Yeah.
So, and it's also just trying to find things for people. Like, no one wants anything, and like they do want things, but no one actually needs things anymore. They say they want something and they get it, and then 2 weeks later they don't use it anymore. And it just feels a bit stupid. Or the thing they do want is like an iPad, and I'm like, I don't have money for that.
Yeah. It's the same with my boyfriend. He never really wants something that's like that I could afford, because he's a musician, and all the things that he wants or needs for his job are just way too expensive for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Growing up is expensive.
That's called being an adult, isn't it? It's so funny that, like, as a kid, you'd be happy to get something that's like a piece of plastic that's been molded into something, and you're happy to get that, and you're like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And you sit and you play with it and you're so excited. And then, like, I get scared every time Christmas comes around. I'm almost like I like presents, but I'm almost like, please don't get me presents, because I don't want to look like I'm disappointed. The truth is that I'm not disappointed. I'm just not excited for anything. There's nothing that like I'd open it and I'd be like, oh my god, I'm like, this is great, because there's like that doesn't exist as an adult. Like you don't.
Yeah, whenever I'm getting a present and I need to open it in front of the person who gifted me that, I'm always stressed because I know they want me to be happy. But I open the present, but then I can't really be happy, and I always feel so fake because I think about how happy I need to be.
Yeah, and also I like when if someone tells me to smile for a photo or just smile in general, it looks so fake, and I know it's fake. Like I give off the, you know how some people are able to smile and make it look like they're genuinely happy. Like I just don't. I don't smile naturally. So when someone tells me to smile, like I like radiate the like I'm not supposed to be smiling because that's not what my face naturally does. So when I'm sitting opening a present and smiling, it must look so fake to people. I'm like, what the hell do they think? That I just like hate everyone or something?
Yeah.
And the worst is when you don't ask for a lot of things, so people get the stuff that you do want, but you know what it's going to be anyway. So you're like, you knew what I wanted, even though I only told you like 2 things. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know. Back to the book. I wanted to ask, did you like the movie or the book more?
I think what I said before, in the fact that the movie is just very much the book, but just with added stuff, I'd say that the movie I probably prefer. Also because for what it is, it's easier to sit and consume a film than it is to read a book, even though this is really simple and easy to read. So I think for that fact, I'd say the film, which is like one of the rarest cases where I'd ever say that I prefer a film to a book.
I think it's different to books that are for adults, because books that are for adults are just so much more compact and there's so much more story in it, and the movie can never cover
much.
And when you have read the book, you're just always a bit disappointed because they left out some things that just felt so important for the story. But since this one is so short, I think the movie is just so much more approachable because you also don't have to concentrate too much on it.
No, it's I think with the like which bits to cut out and stuff like that, when you've got a book that is, I mean, not only is it short, but because it is, like we said before, it's so fast paced and there's like literally nothing going on, that they like, no matter what angle you look at it, you're going to end up with the majority of the stuff. Whereas if you take a book that is, I think even a book that's like 300 pages, they can change so much about it, even if they're trying to stay true to the book, because it is like, even 300 pages is a significant amount of pages to translate into like a 1.5-2 hour film. So then obviously it's down to like, what do the directors, what do the creators of the movie, what's their angle, and what do they take away from the story, and then obviously cutting out certain parts of it and stuff like that. And then you're always going to have people that are disappointed with that and be like, oh, why did you take away this bit or that bit? I actually recently watched, so Netflix have just come out with an adaptation of like a slasher thriller that I read called what's it called? There's Someone in Your House, I think. It's literally just like a modern day slasher kind of thing. Just and the book was all right. I think I gave it like 4 stars just because it was easy to read. And then I watched the movie and it was the crappiest thing I've ever seen. I swear to God, like I should not have spent however long it was, an hour and a half or something like that. And especially because modern day slashers just aren't the same thing as like they used to be. And like that's a whole other thing that's more to do with like the way it was edited together, and it was like really streamlined and stuff like that, and I just don't like that. But just the way, and they changed things, they literally like changed integral parts of the story to the point where I could guess who the killer was, because it was like there was certain things that had gone from the book to the movie that made me able to work out who it was, even though it was someone different from the book. And I already worked it out because they changed it. It was so stupid. But I feel like most people wouldn't have read the book anyway. They'll probably watch the movie first.
I feel like that's the thing that people who adapt books to movies, movie to book, people who make movies out of books often do, that they make them movie very stupid, like anyone could understand it, and they never leave space open for us to think about the story, what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And because this is not a good example because the movie is bad, but I read City of Bones, and the movie to it is also not good. But there, I feel like in the first 5 minutes, you get every exposition this book has, you get every relationship, and they literally show you everything, how everyone feels about anyone. And yeah, I don't know why people do this when they adapt a book. Like, people who watch movies are stupid or something.
Yeah. I think that, like, especially when if it's something that's YA as well.
Yeah, especially there.
Like, I feel like people that read YA have a rep for being not as smart as people that read adult books. And then you look at the people that watch YA films, and they've got a really bad rep. People seem to think that people that watch YA movies are just like so stupid. But it's like, no, just because someone is passively like watching something doesn't mean that they're not thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's that's why it's like there's such a shame, because I think when movies get adapted, especially if I don't really have any good examples, I guess, but like I think that YA has, like, as a book has or like as a genre, a book genre has an ability to talk about a lot of things that like adult books don't usually do, and then when they get translated into films, it just loses that element to it, and like they focus on the wrong things, and it just if someone were to just watch a YA movie that was adapted from a book, they would think there's no point in reading this. Like, why would I read this? It's so stupid. But then you can actually realize that, like, as books, they do a lot better.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have anything else to say about Coraline? Because I feel like I'm not going to say this was a waste of time, because I needed to talk to someone, and I like talking to you, and I haven't spoken to you for ages. So just this was literally just us sitting and having a conversation, and then randomly talking about Coraline.
Yeah.
In bits.
Yeah, it's just so difficult to talk about this book in depth because there's just not so much to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess I have nothing else to add.
No, I don't either. I'm thinking, should we end this live? No one really tuned in anyway. I didn't think anyone was going to.
Yeah.
But, we can end it, and then I don't know. We can, if you're up for it, I'm like up to just sit and have a conversation anyway.
Yeah.
But I just think our conversation needs to be on the internet.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, bye.